Next question for Eric. Can you share more on how the Baltimore situation is having unexpected D&D charges on shippers?
Oh, yeah, Baltimore. Everyone's favorite topic these days in the US. Okay, so, if you think about any sort of situation where a terminal, much less an entire port, is closed for any period of time, there's all sorts of questions about when does free time start? When does it pause? Is there sort of leniency given from the billing party because of, a situation completely out of everyone's control in this case, right? So we've seen shipping lines kind of declare force majeure, which means, I think within the context of D&D, they are not, the laws of the contract for a particular shipment are not necessarily as applicable. So you obviously in Baltimore, you have a lot of containers that were temporarily tied up in a terminal that were supposed to move out on an outgoing ship, or were due to come in and are now at a different port, coming into a different port on the import side, tied up temporarily on the export side, and have had to be moved off of that terminal to another port, right? So it really comes down, I think this is a situation where it really comes down to what type of relationship you as a shipper and your drayage providers have with the terminals you use and the shipping lines you use. Because if you are a transactional shipper who rarely uses this terminal and this drayage provider or this carrier, you're going to have a harder time calling them or emailing them and saying, hey, can we figure out what the right way to handle free time is given the situation that evolved? Like we don't intend to exceed our free time any more than we absolutely have to, but there's been a sort of historic incident. Whereas if you have a relationship set aside with those people or those companies, you're probably going to figure out a way that sort of suits all parties to the best resolution. Everyone recognizing this was a situation beyond everybody's control. And that said, the FMC kind of came out a couple weeks after, maybe within a week after the bridge was collapsed, and said they're going to be monitoring what they consider anti-competitive assessments of fees, and that would include D&D, to make sure that no one is taking advantage of the situation on all parties, I think, right? So on all sides. So I think the short-term impact is just, it's very important to have relationships with your service providers and make sure that you can kind of come to an agreeable resolution, and not let this spiral into some cost center that you were not anticipating, purely out of the fault of no one that you may be attached to. And then long term, I think this just resolves once the channel is opened and things start to flow more normally.